'cause your eyes, they life and night, they look right through me. La 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 la. You bashful boy, you're hiding something sweet. Please give it to me.
Before we delve into our program, which is entitled Honing the Sound, I'd like to acknowledge the death of one of my main teachers. And actually, we featured her in episode 5 on teachers. That would be Mary Webb. And I believe Ziggy has some words to share on Mary's life and her meaning to us.
Yeah, we found out this morning that it feels to me like a planet in my solar system dropped out of the sky. I wrote to some friends today that our oak tree fell this morning and we heard its resounding tone. And I sent the picture that you see on the screen from a walk I took with her in March of 2020 to Lake Merritt. And I got a couple of responses from friends of ours. Debbie Hailu said, about Mary Webb, may she rest in revolution. May we carry the work with her vigor, Ashe. And Endalea Uwamana, also a student and part of the dialogue group. I needed to say that Debbie Hailu is now the co-moderator of the dialogue group on race, racism, and ethnicity in the US. And we had started that with Mary back in 2001. And Debbie and, just flew out of my mind.
Carl.
Debbie and Carl are the moderators currently, and it's been in hiatus since the pandemic, of course. But Endaleo Uwamani was also a student of Mary's and came to the dialogue groups, and she wrote back, thoughts, prayers, love, and deepest sympathy go out to Alex Webb and family. Alex is her son who took care of her and took her to New York very recently. And to everyone who was truly blessed to be a part of the wonderful world of Mary Webb. A mighty oak tree has fallen. I am grateful that I was able to sit under it and catch her wisdom. I love and thank you, Mary Webb, for your unconditional love. And Delmira Aguilar also wrote, thank you, Mary Webb, with lots of hearts. So that's just the beginning, just the beginning.
Yeah. So thank you, Mary, for all that you've given the both of us, and in particular myself. One of the things she taught in her private workshops as well as her public classes is, firstly, never compare yourself to anyone living or dead, and which was very helpful. So I only do that about maybe twice a week or 3 times a week now. So, and then also she taught us to be really vigorous about our time, our writing time, to, take it, seize it.
She also would say, and then she even wrote something, she wrote a short book about this called Suck the Juice Out of Every Moment of the Day. And she really believed that. So I was saying today that she really left it all on the stage or out in the field. So she did good work.
So Mary Webb, presente. When Sarah, Ziggy, and myself were meeting, we did know that we would be recognizing Lawrence Ferlinghetti. And I just wanted to say briefly that I bought his book when I was visiting my son in Massachusetts. He's a professor at UMass Amherst. And I carried that book around with me for, maybe 6 or 7 years until I left. I made the mistake of leaving it in New York, and I didn't know. I couldn't anticipate the pandemic, but in any case, I wrote a poem for him, and it's called Long Live the Legacy of Lawrence Ferlinghetti. Ferlinghetti might have been God because he almost lived forever. And Jersey boys Alan and Amiri lyricized Coltrane's Welcome and are singing it with rhythmic cadences of Kaddish at the big convocation. Ferlinghetti might have been God because I bought his little book, his little black Bible with the red front from a Boston bookstore going out of business. Ferlinghetti might have been God because I took him home to Harlem and we haunted the Strand and 2 bookstores in walking distance. Ferlinghetti might have been God because I took his Bible to Mama Harriet's home up in Auburn and she blessed it with bulletproof prayers. Ferlinghetti might have been God because I never left home without him. Right back pocket, right cheek rounded, busted binding, ruined with red, writing in its margins. Ferlinghetti might have been God because he protected me from punums on platforms and poles of A, B, C, and D trains 5 minutes away from my door. Ferlinghetti might have been God because I obeyed his cool commands, reading and rereading them over and over on train trips, long and short. Ferlinghetti might have been God because he welcomed this darker brother in from the kitchen to speak up and act out, writing between the lines and kiss no rings and things. Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
All right.
Presente.
Presente. Thank you, Raymond.
Bridges hot. Artists running wild on the color wheel. Forging bridges of trust and steel. Bridges cool. Dancers forming brigades with furious feet. Crumbling borders crossing the street. Bridgin's warm, watching babies play, bridging in the yards, tumbling and giggling over sand and monkey bars. Bridgin's boiling, musicians molding metal, fathoming our architectural vision, spanning possibilities, improvising with precision. Bridgin's our language for engineering love. Bridgin's alliance building like lions building, alliance building like lions building bridges. Roaring voices, jamming chords and beats, shattering static images. We are the lions, brandishing our manes, fiercely playing for our lives together. Lions building, alliance building like lions, building Bridgin's alliance, building alliance, building Bridgin's alliance, building alliance, building bridges.
Bridging. That's from our first CD, All Hands on Deck, which was actually nominated for Independent Music Award by the Association for Independent Music, AFIM. And we got to go back to Cleveland for the ceremony. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about is you may have noticed in Sarah's beautiful collage montage some charts, musical notation, and those were very pivotal in the development of our group UpSurge, because you know, I'm not a musician, even though people say it, and in some ways I've been forced to do certain things, but in truth, in order to make our group go forward, it was necessary to capture some of the things that were created and notate them and codify them, and so they could be reproduced and replicated in Providence, Rhode Island, or Ghana, or New Orleans, or wherever the case was, or Denver. And so the person that was responsible for that primarily was Barbara Hunter. You saw some photographs of a woman playing saxophone, perhaps. And Barbara entered our group probably, I guess, well, I would say it's 95 or something like that, right after the Yoshi's gig.
Yeah, we had another Yoshi's gig, the Eddie Moore Jazz Festival.
Yeah. And so I met Barbara Hunter at when I worked for the Berkeley Public Library. She brought a band in to do a concert. We did a lot of programming there, jazz concerts. We moved the tables out and convert the reading room into a concert hall. And so Barbara brought a band in, and that she led, and she was playing flute, saxophone, and also she was a vocalist. And so I became aware of her in a pretty dramatic fashion. And so I was just, cognizant of her. And when the moment came, I guess I approached her and asked her, would she be part of our group? And she agreed. And going forward, she was one of my all-time favorites because of just the incredible loyalty that she demonstrated time and time again. And her, I don't so much like the word professionalism, but I will use it here. Just basically that she TCB'd, she took care of business, and she did what she said she was going to do, did it in a timely way. And she did all those, she had to listen to recordings on cassette tapes and hear what people were doing and then transcribe it. And then our charts are very peculiar because they have a lot of verbal instructions and cues in them. And so that was really demanding work, and she did a really marvelous job.
What I say is that it was really important for me to welcome and have more women on the stage. There was long stretches of time where I was the only female on the stage, and it was great when Barbara also joined, and then it became Barbara and Wanika as our mainstay people. And that was a real pleasure for me to have other women to play with. We have an early clip of the Eddie Moore Jazz Festival when Lennon Onaji was also playing saxophone, and Raymond had invited Barbara to join on flute and tenor saxophone as well. But we have a little clip from that, the early years of Barbara joining our band. It's Wanika and John King, bass and drums respectively.
Time. rhythm remains. What's the pain of blues? People, blues people. Music like Marc knows on seaweed. Blues, music like Marc knows on seaweed. Blues, music like Marc knows on seaweed. Blues, music like Marc knows on blues. People, music like Marc knows on seaweed. Blues, music like Marc knows on seaweed. Blues, people, music like Marc knows on seaweed. I just walk in made by the billions. Run men made to hurt me. David Murray and heard so much music true. So let's just try to play here on this planet. David Murray and hurry, urgent. Gotta get on Saturn with sunrise someday. But now's the time. That was called Urban, the Body Language of David Murray.
That was, again, as Ziggy pointed out, at the Eddie Moore Jazz Festival at Yoshi's again, and you can hear Barbara Hunter on flute in particular, and actually tenor on the David Murray piece. She, oh my God, her flute prowess was really something. I mean, it really was what attracted me to her, drew me to her from the outset.
In fact, she was the musical director of our wedding jazz orchestra. And that was a really important role because we made the jazz orchestra really part of up on stage with us getting married. And she just did an amazing job of herding cats, and doing her artistry just came through, and her love and dedication. So we salute you, Barbara. We love you, Barbara Hunter. We're going to just show a piece that Barbara in her, with Harley White and Ajitan and Bliss Rodriguez play. So you get a little taste of her on tenor in her own band.
Also, I'd like to just highlight those charts again that she crafted for us, because to this day, and that's been what, 95 or so, we still use them. If we were to go to the Monterey Jazz Festival tomorrow, they would be there, and they have gone to the Monterey Jazz Festival.
And to New York and Boston, Denver, Tulane in New Orleans.
So I find them really interesting too, because a lot of times working with people from out of town, like when we were in New Orleans or we were in Denver, people saw them for the first time and they were like, "Oh my God, what is this? What am I?" And then okay, relax. It's stuff you've been doing since you were in elementary school. You could do this, So, anywho, that's a sense of what she did. So she really laid the undergirding for UpSurge's what is
Our
work.
growth and our work, our
Yeah.
growth and our evolution. And an interesting overlap here is that a lot of these charts denote a particular baseline, and where we didn't necessarily have figured out how to codify that. So Raymond will talk about that a little bit too.
Well, the thing, and so for Barbara to have that work to do, it comes from another source, and it goes back to that the group that was at the Poetry Follies, the trio, the Orion's Belt folks. That was from Berkeley High, from the Jazz Factory. That was David Ewell, Damon Bramble, and Philip Byers. But most often, when we were trying to come up with something, I had an idea of what I wanted to happen, and David Ewell would come up with a bass line, and from there we would build around it. I had the writing was there, and I had an idea of how it would operate within the context of the music. And one of the things I was really fond of is segues. I like transmogrification, and so we use that a lot. It's a thread that runs through both of our CDs and all of our live work and so forth.
It also reflects that you different genres of music, and you always felt really strongly about having big ears and growing up with different genres of music, and there's not this hard line between it. That's a marketing shtick.
Right. Yeah. Because in the Black community in particular, and if you look at people's phones or iPods or whatever, you would find their music taste. You would have Aretha Franklin and John Coltrane and Jimi Hendrix, and there's no great walls between them. And so that's the way we like to roll. And so, but I think, really importantly is looking at the evolution of the sound of the group. And there was a point at which we had 3 horns and drums and a dancer, but no bass. And my original conception, the earworm was a trio, saxophone, bass, and drums. And I had heard Ornette Coleman when my mom took her youth center to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And then also when I heard Larry Neal at Howard, when I went back there for a gig, he had a bassist and a trumpeter, and it was quite engaging, quite effective. And so the bass was the central focus of our group, really. If you look at some of those pieces like Bridging, it's very heavily weighted on the bass. And then Listen, a long jazz poem for John Hendricks. It's that bass, that theme that keeps repeating.
Right.
So the man who is responsible for that was David Ewell.
Let's see a little bit about the early years with David.
Before I do, I'd like to introduce you to our fine ensemble here. On bass, from the Jazz Factory, better known as Berkeley High School, just recently back from the Monterey Jazz Festival, Mr. David Ewell.
said, oh, Abdul's not there? He said, yeah. He said, I said, where's he at? He said, he's at the hospital. I said, why? He said, he smoked some crack.
Oh, true.
Really? Yeah, he said, he had me going for so long. He said he was drunk at a party. He said he was drunk at a party, and he thought it was weed, and he just hit it. It was crack. I was like, no, I know you didn't do that. I was like, no. He said, Daniel was like, yeah, man. He just said, he started tripping. He said he just wanted to get some more whatever was in there. I said, what? So what'd you do? He said, I whooped his ass and took him to Highland.
Get down a little bit.
The hyphen between African and American is wildly wide, wishy well steep, Himalaya high, and Grand Canyon deep. In the center, on the bass, from Berkeley High, also known as the Jazz Factory. A young man who's also a very fine jazz guitarist. A young man who we're hoping to lose to New York University or Cal next year, Mr. David Ewell.
Someone who's contributed very significantly through her work as a musician and as a music instructor, Ms. Jessica Jones. We have some special awards to present to these young men tonight.
I'm up here to give you my little scenarios of the history of these three amazing young men who were not always amazing young men. Before that, they were amazing boys. And okay, David was taking my jazz workshop when he was about 12 or 13, and the three of them are just very open-minded musically, and David has always been the first one to jump in and take charge, or if I ask for a volunteer for something, he's up there, rallying other people together, and is one of the most open teenagers I've ever met in terms of working with adults, working with any age, and just being a pleasure to work with. And when he came up to me one day and said, oh, by the way, I play bass now, it was kind of like, you do? And then I watched him at Casadero, and the attitude of learning by doing and just being open enough to experience new things just makes him shoot forward, and that's really an inspiration to me, because I think that's really the way to learn, is to just be open and ready to try something new, and he always has, and he's really excelling.
All right. And so we see Miranda and John over there. You guys got to come up to, come on up rather than come on down. David's parents.
I'd like to thank Raymond also for the same things, that I really started playing bass on a regular basis with this group. I never really had any lessons and just playing, with the guys. I was just starting off basically with your group. After I've just been playing around after school a little bit. And also I really like to thank Jessica. Actually, when I first started playing with the group, I never played with the group before ever until I took Jessica's class and I started taking it, and that's where I met Philip. So Philip's basically the one out of the only two drummers I've played with since I started playing jazz with the group. And I think that's been really good, so we can hear a lot of stuff together. It's been really good. She really taught us. Or she taught me, I don't know, they didn't, well, Philip took the class, Damon didn't, but that's where I really learned the basics of improvising and just improvising what you feel and not out of a book or something like that. And I really appreciate that. I also want to thank my parents for letting me use the car.
Wow.
Those early years.
I can't stress enough is that that was really a formidable surge, if you will, forward, because it changed the sound. It really got the sound that I was looking for and would forever want to stick with. You know, that would be, you know, I needed that bottom and was missing, and finally we got it. And I think the key thing is that David created bass lines that were really joyous and dancing and you know, real easy to relate to and grasp, and for other bassists could come and put their touch on it.
And also a very interesting thing that happened, and it happens sometimes with some of our instrumentalists, that when we have to have moved on or changed configuration for whatever reason, and we had the blessing of having that happen with Barbara, where she stayed in our lives. And like I said before, she became the musical director at our wedding. We called on her and we've worked with her since. With David, we actually saw his progression in the world, and he can talk, well, Raymond can talk a little bit about that. But mainly what I wanted to say was that we maintained a relationship with him over the years and watched him grow, and also had him the pleasure of inviting him, and he played on both of our recordings. In addition, we were at that point in our regular group playing with Ron Belcher, an amazing Bay Area bassist, first call bassist here. And when it came time to record our CD, Richard Howell had been playing also with David in different configurations in different groups, and told us, hey, what do you think? Let's have David come back on the CD and do a couple of tunes and tracks. And it was great because he got to do some of the very tracks where he invented those bass lines. So we have a little bit for the little bit later years to capture a little bit of how we worked with David in the continuing years, to show you a little clip on that.
Ancestors.
Blowing cool and clear. Bestow me with eagle's eyes. Allow me to hear.
With your eyes.
Raymond Nat Turner, David Ewell, Nat Turner, the great California.
Wow, that was amazing. That was so much fun because that piece is called "Listen," a long jazz poem for John Hendricks, and that was one of the bass lines David created. And at the end, there's this little break, and then we say "Listen," and we say "Listen to jazz," and I kind of got a kick out of it because the drummer and leader of the band on that occasion and the one who had convened us all for the gig was the drummer Jazz Sawyer. And so it was kind of had a double meaning. And so it was a lot of fun. If he's willing and ready and able, we have the man himself here live and in the flesh or in the ether, David Ewell.
Hey guys.
Hey.
What do you think of seeing that material?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I haven't seen that stuff. I haven't seen those footage ever, but I have those memories. I do still have the Paul Robeson Award.
Oh my God. Wow.
You also gave me, that was right around the time that me and Damon were graduating, I think, from high school. And you also gave me, and I think you gave all of us a kente cloth. I still have that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah, for graduation.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, for
sweet.
graduation.
Oh, my God. Oh.
I just found those again not too long ago. And yeah.
How are your parents?
They're good. My parents are good. They're living in Berkeley, and you know, they're in it, and they seem like they're living well, living gracefully.
Nice. And their grandparents.
And their grandparents. Their grandparents. Yeah.
You know, one thing I was, if I have memory serves me correct, you're one of 3 children, right? Or is that,
yes.
Is it? And are you in the middle or?
I'm the middle. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. My younger brother, I have a younger brother and an older sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your sister was a dancer, is what I remember, right?
My sister was a dancer. Yeah. Although she let it go. She was a very serious dancer in high school, and then she did it in college, but more as a, you know, she had kind of let go of it as the thing that she was going to do. And now she still dances, but like she'll take classes sometimes. She's not performing.
Right. So do you want to talk a little bit about your trajectory? Well, you started in guitar, right? That's what
I started in guitar. Yeah, actually, I originally started when I was very little. I started on violin. And then when I was around 7, I switched to guitar because I had this feeling like, oh, violin isn't cool, and I want to be cool. and I switched to guitar. And then in high school, I picked up the bass. And UpSurge was where I really got the first chance to really explore it. I was playing with Damon and Philip, and we were playing trio. I think maybe we started doing it more kind of around the same time that we started doing it with UpSurge. And so we would play trio, and then we would also play with UpSurge, and that was really, really amazing. It was a special time. We were also used to dance. Me and Philip, I don't know if you know that. Me and Philip, we had dance routines also, like, you know, because it was the early 90s where everything was hip hop. So we were playing jazz and listening to jazz, but also listening to rap music like crazy. And
so you were b-boys?
Not quite. We weren't like, it wasn't like break dancing. It wasn't like that. It was just like, it was dancing for fun, you know, dancing for fun. It's like
that's great.
the way that kids, I don't know, I guess they still do it. But
did you take dance classes at all?
No.
Okay.
No dance lessons, no bass lessons. Just Just fooling around.
Wow.
And then when you came with us, when you started with us, were you 17 or what? How old were you?
I might have been 16.
I think
16.
16. I do.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Because I think it was like 2 years, that almost like a sort of some. And I remember one rehearsal, one crazy time where you were on your way, and I think the car flipped over.
Yeah, that's
Damon in the car. We were turning. We were going down University, and I made an ill-advised left turn in front of traffic, and
oh my God,
got clipped. That was
And the car was upside down when I came down there. It was on its top.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Luckily, it wasn't a freeway situation.
Woo.
It wasn't a freeway situation.
And actually, we had a gig that day, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed it.
And yeah, I think so. I think I was, that was, could have been the end of UpSurge. That would have been DownSurge.
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, man, because, I would have been responsible to the two sets of parents, so yeah, I was glad that came out like it did.
Wow.
That was good.
And
Yeah.
when you what took you on after that? Where did you
So I kept playing bass. I went to UC Berkeley, and there I majored in ethnic studies at UC Berkeley, and I was a part of UC Jazz there, and I started playing gigs really a lot. First of all, I should just say that my first professional gig was with UpSurge. we played at the Sugar Shack on 8th Street.
Wow.
Right.
Wow, that was amazing.
And we got paid for that gig.
Oh!
And we were driving back, and we had crossed the bridge, and we were headed back. I remember we were just on the overpass just coming to Berkeley, and I was giving a ride to Damon, and I was like, "Hey man, we got paid for that gig. We are professionals now."
It's true. I think we even still have an envelope with your name on it.
We
with
do.
their stamp of UpSurge.
By the time I graduated from college, I was playing 7 nights a week with different groups. I played a lot with Bishop Norman Williams and BJ Papa in the city, and Bob Kimotsu, and I was playing with a Brazilian band that was doing really well at that time.
Vivendo.
Yeah. And that was where I started playing Richard Howell.
Oh, okay.
Was in that group.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing
So
I
that was
want to, I'd like to go back a little bit to the UpSurge years, and clearly Damon Bramble was the musical director, leader.
Oh yeah.
Clearly.
So talented.
Yeah. And I thought you were the actual leader of them, when it came to dealing with the adults and myself and so forth, because I think you were the more outspoken one of the bunch. And actually, you and I had a little kind of beef at the end of your tenure, because I think it was a misunderstanding in which I was I was proud of all you guys, and I kind of was like a surrogate parent in some way, a peer in other ways, and a mentor in other ways, and a student of yours in other ways. And one of the things, you and Damon were seniors and Philip was a junior. And so in one of the introductions, I heard myself say, and we hope to lose him to NYU or UC Berkeley. And so I graduated you out of UpSurge, perhaps prematurely, and, because maybe you thought you could do both. And I was kind of thinking, oh man, he's on to something bigger and better. And so I kind of pushed you out.
Oh, was that when Lorenzo came in?
Yeah,
Oh,
and it wasn't, I should have checked with you, but I just assumed that.
But I have a different take on that.
Okay.
And that was actually a very important thing for me that we probably haven't talked about it. But I remember having that conversation with you, and I was very hurt. I was a kid, and we were making music together, and you asked Lorenzo to play, and I remember you said, "Man, Lorenzo has a really nice sound," and I was a guitar player, and I have since heard now I've become a bass player. Really, I'm a bass player, and I wouldn't even say I'm a guitar player anymore. But I've heard many guitar players play the bass, and they sound like guitar players playing the bass. They don't have a sound of that sound. And Lorenzo was a bass player. He learned the bass. He studied the bass. He didn't switch over from guitar or something like that. He was a bass player. And I remember, and you saying that, I took that to heart. And man, for the next decade, I was like always focused on my sound and getting a sound and how can I get a sound. And I do feel like in the end, what became part of my thing was having a sound that sounded like me. And it was something that people would say to me all the time, whether I was playing, well or not well or fancy or simple. They always say, well, you always have a sound. You always sound like that. But you were the one that got me to focus on that specifically. Absolutely. That was like a big moment for me. I was like, oh, my sound. So I probably never told you that.
Oh, no. So thank you for clarifying, because I always just felt that I was kind of, graduating you on too. So it was perhaps a combination of both.
He was hurt. He was hurt by it, actually. And that's what came out first. Raymond didn't get that you were hurt. It came
later.
It came off a little different, and he didn't even realize it. And,
right.
I probably didn't even. I mean, knowing me and how silly I was, I'm sure I didn't even understand that I was hurt. It probably took me.
But you were a kid.
I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I was a big
Raymond,
kid.
and Raymond was a brand new band leader.
And one of the things over the years, as I look back, you always inspired me going forward. Really, I'm serious. I took it to heart watching your example as time went on, because if you look at if I'm honest, if I look at the three of you guys, and you guys were together, man, you guys were awesome, man. But if I look at it, like Damon, he played 3 instruments: piano, saxophone, and flute. And I think Philip was a natural as far as the drums went. And I think, yourself, you're like the Tom Brady of the bunch, Tom Brady, he was drafted 199, out of some 200, and he was a 6th round draft choice for New England. But, look at going forward. I mean, what I'm saying is that you worked very hard. You talked about your 10 years where you put in the work, and man, it showed. You could hear it, you could hear it, and so I was so proud of you and inspired by you, because myself, I look at my own, weaknesses and shortcomings, as a writer, we talked about it one episode before, or 2 episodes before, where imagery, I just didn't know from, when it came to imagery, but it's
licking bitter flaps. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, it's for, I was limited. I had some limitations, but I've been working on it, but you really inspired me on that regard, because I did watch you, very closely, I did keep track of you through Richard and through other means, and so you were a real inspiration in that regard.
And do you want to talk a little bit about your Marc Cary years, the Focus Trio?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I played with a trio originally with a drummer named Samir Gupta and a saxophonist named David Boyce, who's one of the members of the Brown Fellinis. And Samir had put that group together, and then Richard Howell joined us, and we became a quartet. And we were doing all improvised music, and all definitely, in a line from those days playing with UpSurge, of like making stuff up and making something that sounds good, and doing it together. And And Marc and Samir was he sent some music to Marc Cary. It's like, hey man, I really like your music. You should check this out, you know? And Marc liked what he heard, and he came out to the Bay Area and came out to check us out and to sit and just play a little bit. And we played at Bruno's just late night, just hanging out. And he came out to play with us several times a year for several years, just completely incognito, just come and play some little gigs. And then eventually we had a really magical night, and he said, man, we got to record this right now, you know? So then we went into the studio that weekend and we recorded a record, the Focus Trio. And you know, Marc is one of the people that's he's in the book. His name is written in the book. You know what I mean? He played with Betty Carter. With Betty Carter, you know, Abby. For years. He played with Abby Lincoln for years. You know, he came up with Roy Hargrove, and they were like just buddies playing all the time. You know, and he played in his band, and Roy played on his stuff. And you know, he played with Art Taylor. He played with all these guys, Jackie McLean. He played with all these guys, and tons of more people, of more people, everybody. And he passed that. There's some things that he passed on to us in that trio of like ways of talking about music and ways of making music together. And it was, you know, we played out in New York a bunch. We ended up playing it with Lincoln Center. We played with Lincoln Center jazz. It wasn't the orchestra, but it was members of the orchestra doing small group stuff, and we played with them. It was Marc Cary Trio, Mulgrew Miller Trio, and I think one other trio. And we played Rose Hall at Lincoln Center with that group. We played in Europe, and we played all over the U.S. That was a very special group. And he also, I don't know if you know this, but with the Marc Cary Trio, we played with a poet named Sekou Sundiata. You did? Oh, we played at the Marlborough Festival in New Jersey. We played at Marlborough with Sekou Sundiata, who is someone that Marc had worked with, and that definitely, it's nice to have that line, you know, of like. You know, it's like that narrative of like, well, here I am. This is where I started. You know,
definitely. You know what I
mean?
Oh, Sekou is his album. We carried that to the first recording, and we're like, we want that presence of the poet and the music, the way he shaped that, and the way that sounded on his album. It's like, we want some of that. We got it. And Richard knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And your relationship with Richard Howell as well.
Yes, Richard Howell. Wow. I mean, what an amazing human being. We met before I knew he was a musician. I was always playing at this one little place in North Beach called The Gathering. And he was at that time touring with Etta James, I think, but he would go in and out. He would like have this awesome like dream work schedule of he was on the road for 2 weeks and he was home for 2 weeks, on the road for 2 weeks. And his wife worked at a store on that same block of North Beach. So I would see him, and you know, he's a striking figure. He's like a, you know, looks like a lion kind of with his long dreadlocks.
That's right.
And he would see me with the bass, and I didn't know he was a musician, but he was always like, hey, how's it going? You know, just like passing, you see someone passing the street. And one day he saved a parking spot for me. And he was like, oh, I'm about to leave, take my spot. And so I tried to get a spot, and someone else snuck in because it was North Beach. And he saw that and stopped his car and got out and went back to the person. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I was saving the spot for my friend. And
I could so see that. I could see it.
And then one day he just poked his head in the door of this cafe where I was playing with Vivendo, with his Brazilian band. And I smiled at him like, oh, there's my buddy, you know, that got me the parking spot. It's just the neighborhood guy. And the saxophonist in the band saw that he was my friend, because saw us exchange glances. This is during a song. And then the saxophonist looked and saw that Richard had a soprano saxophone. She's like, oh, hey, man, yeah, play. Okay, you must be a friend of David's. And so he pulled out a soprano saxophone and just he took it to the stratosphere, and the band lifted up. We lifted up about 18 inches off the ground, and just hovered there, the whole band, for the rest of the night. And we had never played with somebody at that level, at that caliber, with that ability to do things with energy, musically. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then from that moment on, he brought all that to that band.
And he had never before mentioned it, right? He's just that's so Richard. That's how he became our producer. He not mentioning it for years to us.
One thing that's really funny, talking about documentation, I found this document. You can't read it, but I can.
Oh wait, maybe you can. Let's see.
Well,
let's see.
It's
backwards, but
it's from Russian Hill's studio. And when you go in the studio, it's what we recorded and how many takes we did. And so listen, that's of course your bass line. And then of course we did hyphen, which we use footprints, And so anyway, it talks about miking and false starts and all this. And so it's a funny.
That's great.
Big Questions was Con Alma. We did. We used to do Con Alma. My piece.
And I believe I believe that might have been you guys' first time in the studio. I think it was mine for sure.
That's entirely possible.
You and Philip and Damon on it, right? We have pictures. My dad was in town and he was taking pictures. We have a picture of Raymond and he together, but he was taking pictures, and one of them, I think Philip was laying on the piano bench taking a nap.
We
were there for hours. But,
because we picked you guys, well, you were driving, you were the one who drove, and so you had Damon, I believe, and maybe Philip too. And so we went to the studio pretty early in the morning, and it was kind of an all day endeavor, and you guys, it was good for all of us, and myself included, to understand what studio work is like, because it's not like a live performance. You just go hit it and then you're finished. You're in there, that mic wasn't right, or somebody sneezed, or somebody's got jewelry on, can you take that jewelry off, all that stuff.
So where could people hear some of your music if they wanted to check you out?
It's online. I mean, the Marc Cary trio, I played on 3 records with Marc Cary trio. The Supplicants we have 3 records, and then I think about a whole bunch of live stuff just got released a year ago. Pretty fun, pretty nice live stuff. And that's all on iTunes. It's on Apple Music, and the Jazz Sawyer group, he's got an album up, I believe, everywhere people listen to music. There's a bunch of stuff like that. There's a bunch of bootlegs, and I don't know. There's
Do you listen to your older stuff these days, or how do you relate?
Once in a while. When I listen to it is when someone's probably going to put something out. Usually that's when I'll listen to it, and I'll be like, oh wow, that's good. I know Howard Wiley was saying that me and Howard Wiley and Daryl Green, and another bass player, Devin Hoff, we did a 2 bass hit for on every Monday for about 9 months at one point. I guess it was the late 90s or early 2000s, but Howard has a bunch of that recorded, and he said it sounds really good. So maybe that'll come out at some point. I don't know. That I had a thought, Raymond, that that last clip you showed of the Jazz Sawyer and Pursuers show, I think that was an Intersection for the Arts. But my son is in the background. He's got a little bucket hat on. My son is in the background. He was in the bass case during that performance, and you can see him walking around, standing up at the end. And he's going to turn 24 this year.
What? Are you kidding me? Are you serious?
He's turning 24.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. Because I was wondering who that was in the background. I knew it was someone,
that's my oldest.
someone's child.
Wow.
And
wow.
You have three, right? You have 3 kids?
I've got 4. So Emil's my stepson. He's turning 24.
Right.
And he's rapping. He makes beats and he's rapping. And actually, one of his beats got 2 of his beats were used by a rapper named Blueface. And so my son actually has his music has millions of listens.
Oh wow!
So he's doing that, and my daughter Simone is 20. She's at UCLA, and she's also singing and playing guitar and writing songs. And she's in a major called World Arts and Cultures, which is about, you might be interested to know, is about making art in conversation with social justice and politics. It's like it's
nice.
so it's an interesting major that. And then I got 2 little ones that are still little.
Oh my God. And when we ran, I thought it was Simone that I saw when we met you in Berkeley. Well, it had to be years ago, and she was little.
Probably.
Because
the
2 little ones, I think, weren't on the scene yet, maybe, right? Is that amazing?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Wow. This is amazing, man.
You're a papa to the 10th degree.
The funny thing is, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating, that I'm really proud of all you guys, that all you guys have, because I ran into Philip not too long ago, and he's this social justice activist. And I'm kind of like, oh my God. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the equation, it's just like, it's just like as an artist and also the fact of age, time moves, is one dimensional. It just moves forward. It never stops. It's inexorable and stops for no one. And I look and I say, wow, here's this 16-year-old kid who created this music, and I'm still doing this, and in some ways it feels like, oh man, am I stuck? But then again, the thing I always knew is that there's a way in which like if you're saying something, sometimes it gets squashed. It's like, and it's just like when we went to New York and I was doing some of these things, doing some of your bass lines, because sometimes I have to do gigs. We have a band there, but also I got a lot of solo gigs all of a sudden. So I had to do things Acapulco, and so, I use your bass line. But I guess the point is that, people haven't heard this stuff, and the intent was always to elevate people's consciousness. That was always my intent. That was always the purpose of it. But so I just like to be real, have, sometimes I have this little feeling, what am I doing, but maybe I'll go back to the drawing board and rethink it.
Well, that's why having this opportunity to connect with you again. I mean, we have over the years, but I think it's really important to document what it was like from your point of view and what you've learned. And thank you.
Yeah, one thing I would like to say that I've been thinking about a lot is that when I was that age and all throughout that whole period, I was so young, every single thing I was doing was new. Every person I met was someone I hadn't met someone like that before, you know? And there's something about that I think I realize now that I took for granted, you know? But I have to say, I haven't met anybody else like you guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real statement. Like, you know, I've been around the world. I've played with a lot of people. I've met a lot of people. Everyone meets a lot of people, you know, but those times were so special, and the things that we did were so special and genuinely unique and genuinely magical. Right. And at the time I took it somewhat for granted because I was meeting all these magical people that were doing all these magical things. And somehow I thought, oh, that's just how it is. People are just magic. And then over time, and now I'm like, you know, now it's been decades. I'm like, oh, but I haven't met more magic people, you know? It's like those, so the you know, the work that you guys continue to do is beautiful and very meaningful. And of course you have that feeling, Raymond, because you're an artist, and every artist has that feeling. But you know, it's
right.
I'm so happy that you're still playing still using that bass line, you know, and still using the songs. You might want to know that bass line was inspired by an Eric B. and Rakim song. It's not the same bass line because I couldn't play that bass line at that time. But there's an acoustic bass line that's sampled in an Eric B. and Rakim song, which is the first song on the soundtrack to the movie Juice.
Oh, wow.
Which came out in the early 90s when I was in high school. Wow. And I had just, when we went to that listen to the rehearsal, we were like, let's do something for listen. I had just checked out this soundtrack to the movie Juice, and it's hot. The bass line is like, you know, and that was like my take on that bass line, you know.
Wow.
So
but that's really the artist. That's the art. That's the creative process. You're summing it up. That's amazing.
I never knew this.
Because you know, it was fresh in you and meaningful. And just like Jessica had said, you were somebody that, you know, it didn't have to bypass, well, you know, this is the sound he wants, and I'm going to go in my encyclopedia of sounds. You know, it just was like, it was present in you. You embodied it. And that's what you brought. And I remember that even with bridging, it was like you, and with ancestors
too,
we you know, that was like this idea of a chant, but we didn't have a musical form for it. And we wanted it to change at a certain point and go, you know, flowing cool and clear. And it was like, it really felt like that. The way the use of the way, even the water coming in, to me, water, the metaphor of water, that was your bass line. It was like, yes, it was, anyway. So thank you. What I wanted to do was just let people know right now that we're going to have another episode. We're going to continue talking about the evolution of UpSurge, and we mentioned a few people already Richard Howell is going to definitely play an important part in this evolution in the description next month, March 28th, the same bat channel, same time at 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern. We're going to do this again. And I wanted to invite we'll just do a little visual of getting to recap this, but then you can stay on, folks, if you want, and introduce yourself to David, or ask him a question, or ask us any questions about process or creativity, and we'll definitely check you out next month. Did you want to say anything else?
I just want to say thank you to the people who showed up, and we really appreciate you. It's, you know, this is kind of new territory. We're on terrain that's been unexplored for, you know, just since this pandemic. You know, we've been locked down. And so we've kind of taken this Myers lemon, and made some really delicious lemonade, I think. And so I'm really grateful that you guys have joined us. And once again, I want to thank David for a couple of, you know, certainly at least two very, very used the word magical, and I would say I would concur that those were magical years because you guys were just beautiful people to work with, beautiful artists, and you brought that firepower that youth is bestowed with, and you really made the dreams that I had tangible. You made them palpable with what you guys brought. It was such a joy to work with you guys. I learned a lot from working with you, and I had so much fun, really. I mean, I guess it was a very profound lesson, that when art is fun, when you're having fun, then you're on the right path, and so that that should be really something that should be my meter, my guide going forward. Because when I look back, all the things that I've done really well have been fun. Working with Richard in the studio on some of the gigs have been an incredible amount of fun. So I really do appreciate you, and you've been an inspiration for me as in terms of your career trajectory and so forth. And so, man, thanks for the memories.
Sweet. I just got a nice text. We have somebody else, if we can bring him up, that you'll all both recognize. A little surprise. We had the pleasure of watching him on Zoom, in a live stream the other night. And can we have Daryl Green here?
Where is he?
Daryl Green.
Where?
Oh, he's coming up, Raymond. I just want to say thank you.
Is.
Oh,
thank
my
you,
God.
Raymond.
Oh.
Thank you,
David
guys.
is
Thank you so
thanking.
much.
Yeah.
You were saying, hey.
We surprised you, huh? I know you didn't expect to come on board visually. There you are, Daryl.
No, I was like eating dinner, listening to you guys.
Sweet.
Oh, man.
So Daryl, if people saw from that video in the KPFA recording studio, Daryl was on drums, and it was Richard Howell, saxophone, soprano sax in that shot, and our producer, and we had already recorded maybe our first and second CD by then. Because we had Daryl Green on drums for our second CD, and David was on both CDs. So that was a little tiny taste. So we're going to get up to you, Daryl, in our future. Daryl also played at our wedding. That was one of the first gigs, actually, that I met you. Was our wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Babatunde couldn't. Babatunde is somebody that we were playing with on our first CD, and I couldn't. We couldn't. He wasn't available, and we had heard about. How did Philip introduce? How did that happen?
I knew about Daryl when he was 13 or 12 or 13. I was trying to get him in a group, man. Once Philip was, moving on or whatever, and moms wouldn't let it happen.
Maybe she heard about that Spread Love gig. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
that was the deal breaker right there.
The nudity.
That was in the previous episode.
Yeah, nudity. But as fate would have it, Daryl has been such an integral part of, our development, and particularly once we got to New York. And, he's such a wise man, wise person. It's way beyond his years, And he's, man, one thing, let me share something with you guys. We did a segment called Mentors. It was the fourth segment. And one of my mentors is Donald Duck Bailey, great drummer, Jimmy Smith, Carmen McRae, and others. And then the other was Doug Edwards, you know, the KPFA programmer. And one of the sayings Doug Edwards had is, I've never met a dumb jazz musician. And it's true. And he said, you know, they might have defects in character, but you don't meet dumb jazz musicians. And one of the things, you know, I've over the years, I've learned so much from you guys. And particularly once we got to New York, I learned just a lot from Daryl about New York, but also just about some of the things we were doing in the group that could be done differently and made the group stronger, made the sound stronger, made the performances stronger. Daryl was like, nah, everybody don't need the solo, man.
Right.
You know, and, he, like,
and also even about rehearsing the heads of the
yeah, just how to have really efficient
yeah.
rehearsals, you know, much more efficient. So
I
thank you guys, man.
Sweet.
You know,
the last time actually I saw you play, David, was you were visiting in New York, and it was Daryl had a gig at Smoke. Was that right? And you sat in. Is that possible? Does anybody remember that?
Was it Marc
I
Cary's
remember
gig,
that.
or was it Marc's gig?
I don't remember. No, it's Daryl's gig.
Oh, okay.
It was Daryl's gig.
It
was definitely
That's
Daryl's gig because we went to Smoke.
It was. Yeah, I don't know. I remember that. Was it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was such a coincidence. You know, seeing all you guys, you know, on another part of the country at the same time, same place, you know.
Right. That was a little reunion.
Yeah, it was always surreal, you know. But I had a question for you guys, because when I was coming up, you know, now looking back, what inspired you guys to use the young guys? Because
that's what he asked.
Because I knew that, I knew from Philip and Dave and everybody about you guys and Howard and everything, and I always knew that you guys were, you know, you guys used the younger cats too, you know, and so what made you lean towards that?
Well, you know what, in some of the earlier episodes, I talked about influences, you know, because firstly, there was the influence of, you know, let me share some numbers with you. When Abby Lincoln would come to town, you know, we caught like 38 of her shows, like 38 of 40. I'm serious. Wow. And then part of it, some of them were paid, and then others, you know, oh, Marc's in the band this time, or what's his name? Who's that drummer? Michael Bowie's the bassist. He's like, oh, Mike, put me on the guest list, or the Alvester, put me on the guest list, you know. But we caught 30, you know, I would bring her a vase with flowers to the sound check, and then
she would call the next day and say, you can come to the show.
So anyway, we caught a lot of those shows, but before I caught Abby, or maybe around the same time, I caught Betty, you know, Betty Carter. And so that's where it came from, you know. I was watching them, you know, because I caught a lot of Betty Carter shows, and I would just see how miraculous and magical the young energy was, you know. It was just, and it looked good too. I mean, there was a certain look that youth has, you know. I mean, because there's an enthusiasm and fire, you know. It's just like, it's not a cynical look of people on stage. It's like people having genuine joy and so forth. And so I caught that, and I said, yeah, that's what I want. And so I tried to model on that. And then and even before that, the first time I went to Yoshi's, I caught Boo, Art Blakey in the Messengers. This messenger group had 2 Bay Area cats in it, Benny Green on piano, Peter Washington on bass. and then a front line of Delfeo Marcellus on the bone, and Javon Jackson tenor saxophone, and Philip Harper trumpet, and Kenny Garrett on alto. How do you have a group like that? You know, and so it was just that youthfulness and that energy, and because one of the things I found dealing with artists that were my age, you know, I ran into two cats who were playing heads of Lee Morgan tune. It was tenor and trumpet. And so I said, oh man, you know, I approached these guys, and this cat tells me, oh man, well, you know, I need to get my car out of the impound. And so can you put up some money to front that? And I was like, no, man, we're not going down that road, you know. And so, you know, the young cats came without baggage, you know, that was the other thing.
Oh, that's real. But what now that these guys are older, but one thing too, we would go, you know, Raymond would bring me to haunt the Berkeley High jazz concerts.
Yeah.
And that was sort of his recruiting territory. He'd be like going scout, you know, he'd be scouting, and he'd be, you know, writing down, no, not seriously writing down, but definitely, you know, checking out who the players were and who's upcoming and who's playing. And
yeah, and one of the things I saw change, you know, like you guys, I don't know. I met David's parents. I had to meet him. I had to meet Damon's mom. I had to meet Philip's parents, you know, and your parents were really great, you know, and I suspect Daryl's parents were great too, because the way you guys approach things. I remember when I was totally done with, I was the one that dubbed it the Jazz Factory. I was totally done. I called this young cat who was at Berkeley High. You know, I had heard about him, and I think maybe I saw him. And his first words out of his mouth, how much is the gig paying? You know, I'm like, dude, you know, this cat, I never heard that from any of you guys, man, you know.
And we did pay, though. Don't give people the wrong impression. We did pay.
But that's not the first thing that should be coming out of a high school cat's mouth, I don't think, you know.
No, I know. Mm-hmm. Well, their concerns are different because they're being supported, hopefully, generally speaking.
But what I had noticed is that the joy of the music had left, in my opinion. You know, people were, after all this success that Berkeley High had, Joshua Redmond, you know, on and on, Wolf, oh God, Ambrose, you know, Jonathan Finlayson, you know, people started seeing, you know, okay, this is my ticket to this career. And, you know, I don't so much love this stuff that I'm doing, you know, I didn't feel that anymore, you know, and of course, that's a generalization. And of course, when you make generalizations, you know, they're off, you know, because what's the name? Charles Altura, the guitarist, I met him, you know, he's one of the cats, you know, for real.
All right. Wow, we're gonna have a party. How about we open this up? There's another UpSurge alum here. I just see is on. Can we bring on Angela Wellman?
Oh, Wellman is there. Is Wellman in the house?
She's in the house. But actually,
hey, I just got here.
She just got there. Hey, Angela.
Hello, two beautiful people.
How do you come to know Daryl? I know that you know Daryl. Do you know David Ewell, obviously, but
I know. Yes, I know. I mean, you know, part of me wants to say they were sort of my students, you know, and I was teaching at UC Berkeley's Young Musicians program.
Oh, YMP.
Oh,
That's right.
And so they
That's
were
right.
students at the time, you know,
Wow.
and you know, we were all in that thing together over there. He told me, Justin.
Oh, he told me, the saxophonist.
Yeah. And listen, he told me Justin. There was a
Justin
trumpet
Brown.
player that was with me, and what's her name? Bass player. Rosetta Sharp and her brother.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she was a bass player. They were all in my combo. Yeah, that was great fun. So that's how I come to know Daryl. But then, you know, what can I say? That's how I know Daryl and David and from the Young Musicians program at first.
YMP.
Yeah.
Nice.
David and Daryl, were you in YMP together or?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Hey, David.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was the little kid on the block.
We didn't, as I say all the time, we didn't used to let Daryl play. We didn't let, because he was, you know, Philip was killing it. Daryl was like this young kid. So,
but it was great though, because, you know, to be honest, you know, coming up, I learned from them guys. You know, I learned how serious it was, the music was. I learned about the records because they were always listening to something. And me and Howard, we were just the babies. We just came in, and you know, we're trying to catch up with them, you know, and it was just a great experience to, you know, not only you're learning from teachers, but you're learning from some older peers, you know, that's kind of setting an example in a sense, you know, and it was a great time. I mean, even Miss Wellman, I will never forget, you know, she had a djembe, and she let me play her djembe. And not only did she let me play the djembe, she gave me the password to her locker.
Oh my God.
So I can get it out anytime to practice. Like, who does that to a little kid? You know, you give them that responsibility to let them go in your locker to, you know, to use some of your equipment, you know?
Wow.
I mean, all those kind of things, you know, it's like, I better make sure, you know, I take care of this and I lock this, and, you know, this is a great responsibility. I mean, you know, for a young person, and for me anyway, that locked in my head, like, oh wow, you know, I need to step up. You know, people are giving me a chance for, you know, or whatever. So it was just a great time to be around all you guys and everything, man. It's special.
Yeah, one of the things I like about Daryl is, you know, he would ask the deepest questions. You know, these questions would be like, it was about.
I can't even remember philosophical, but
it was about Dixie. You know, because we used to to play Dixie in this tune we have called Operation Homefront OH, and you know, ba da da ba 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 da ba da ba ba, and Daryl was the person who asked, where did it come from, or who wrote it, or something like that. I was like, oh my God,
why did you want to use it? Yeah, that was.
I thought it was just hilarious, man, because we spent time talking about that. You know, it was just like, wow, only Daryl Green.
Y'all bring up Dixie. This is sort of a tangent, but I want to say that there's a book called Way Up North in Dixie.
Yeah.
And it is about, here we go with another interesting piece of Black history, because it is argued that song was actually written by a Black man.
I can see
about, I'm trying to remember their names, Way Up North in Dixie. What is the name of this family? Oh God, I can't remember their names right now, but the Snowden family. And if you know, there was a guy who played early in one of Basie's first bands. His name was, I think, Elmer Snowden, or there was a Snowden who was a banjo player. But the Snowden family lived, they were part of a whole plantation system in northern Maryland. And so the master, right, he decided we're done with this slavery thing. We're all going up north to Ohio. And so, you know, all the enslaved people, white people, they were all one big happy family. They all went up there and he gave them some land, the Snowdens. And the Snowdens, when I was reading about them, you know, and this person unpacked the lyrics. And, you know, some of the lyrics talk about like the trees that were on the, in that part of Maryland, you know, and that sort of thing. There are lyrics, other lyrics to the song. And it was, he argues that it was some sort of like a nostalgic, I miss my home, even though, you know, so, you know, I wish I was in the land of Dixie, you know, but he argues that this person, the Snowden, Elmer was his name, I believe, who wrote the song, that's what he was writing about. And then Dan Emmett, who was one of the first Ethiopian delineators, you know, that did the blackface and all, he took the song as they learned so many of their songs from the plantations, from the enslaved people, and took it onto the stage in popular, you know, America. And when, you know, and when you go there, there's a picture and it shows where Elmer Snowden was buried. And then down and on the headstone, it says, the man that taught Dixie to Dan Emmett. It's on his headstone. So it's a very interesting, you know, story. So the name of the book was written by Howard. The book was written by Howard and Judy Sachs. And it's called Way Up North and Dixie. It's a fascinating story to consider that even the song that is now the Confederate, the anthem of the Confederate,
right,
by a black man. And teach family. I think of them like say the Staple Singers or somebody like that. This was like before the Civil War. You know, in the 1850s, they were traveling all around, kind of like within a 70-mile radius of their home, you know, with their wagon. They were traveling musicians and they were performing and they played. There's this great pictures of them with their banjos and all their stuff around them. And these are like in the 1855, 56, 57. And I just think about them traveling around the country, performing, you know, and they were probably playing that song. You know, you said it. I didn't mean to like hijack the conversation.
No, but no, nobody plays it like Richard Howell though. Richard Howell, man, he plays. Man, he makes me feel like when he plays it, I feel like, you know,
he might be tapping into the Snowden energy because, you know, it is argued that song was written by some black folks.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, you know, because it's like, you know, the people who invaded the Capitol on Capitolist Hill on the 6th, you know, they have all, you know, they appropriated so much, you know, high fives and fist bumps and, you know, the kind of even some of the language that they've appropriated, you know, it's just, you know, you hate a certain group of people so very much that you appropriate all their culture. You know.
Or as another Bay Area poet used to say, you love everything about us but us.
Yeah.
But it's like what you just said, Raymond, like you appropriate their culture, you hate them, but you appropriate their culture and everything. It sort of like turns inside out and it turns into self-hate. Right. It's kind of an interesting way to kind of think about that. You know, you hate us, but you using our stuff. Right. So you hate yourself too. I mean, you know.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah,
I think that's another session when we bring our resident.
Actually, our resident shrink, the shrink for the Zoom, for the squares. Our trauma, our somatic, it's all in our bodies. Can you just stay right where you are, folks? We just have a little closing to do, and then we'll open this up for discussion.
David Ewell. Daryl Green, drums.
That's right.
Where's the piano played by the cat in the hat? Wouldn't it sound better than some kid's gat? Once their work is complete, are they lost in a museum once called the street?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, it's a beautiful moment listening to all of you. I feel like I'm in a living room and it's a safe space, and I can actually, this is a program I can have my grandchildren actually feed off of. So I was listening to y'all discuss moments in time and how incredible it is to have a platform for people, especially people who are in the front lines, like who were children and then they became adults and they're dealing with all of this stuff. To have a space where we can actually linger safely and express. My son, he's a revolutionary of sorts, but he's more than that. He's a daddy of three. He's now in his 30s, my daughter 30s, just like some of the folks on your panel who shared about why did you pick like some young folks to come up with UpSurge. And these are things that young people right now are searching for. I'm not saying I'm putting a word out for any of the artists, like the name Howard Wiley was mentioned, other people who, some of our young people in the revolutionary struggle, they would go down and jam before pandemic and listen to the vibes, listen to all of these artists who collaborated, and the sounds and the vibes transcended the oppression, the real oppression of the moment. Artists have an ability of telling the truth in so many levels. Continue to do your story sharing, the moments of sharing of the evolution of all of you. I appreciate that. Thank
you, Topaz. Point out that James Radke is an amazing photographer. He's moved out of the Bay Area for a while now. But when you saw some of those pictures, especially of the ones that were with Wanika and Barbara, myself, and Raymond, and then there's the classic shot, we call it, of UpSurge that we use forever and ever. We asked James, we bought it. We paid him for that shot to use that as our promotion. But that those amazing photographs, and also photographs just through the years from James Radke. James, hello.
Hello. It's good to see and hear from you.
Yeah, it's really good to hear from you. Are you still shooting?
Daily and all the time.
It's great.
So
Wonderful.
I also enjoyed photographing the work on your first album.
That's right.
That's right. All hands on deck. All the hands on the liner notes
and all the studio stuff.
And the studio. Right. And with Duck, and you documented Raymond and Donald Duck Bailey on that hit and get it. But that all hands was really beautiful because we wanted everyone's hands on their instruments, and we'll show it. You know, actually, when we get to our episode on recording, we'll have some visuals to show.
We'd like to
have you come and talk about
the session. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be nice.
And then Max was on it too, right?
Perkoff? Yeah, Max Perkoff. That's right. Our first CD, All Hands on Deck, and now it's kind of sold out, but you can get some used copies, I think, around. We have a couple around. Hi, Jumani. I see my friend in New York. How are you? Good to see you. Another photographer. Actually, James, we were just talking, Jumani, to our a gig photographer, an event photographer, and our recording photographer, James Radke, was in the Bay Area for many years and now lives in the Midwest. Would you consider it the Midwest? Or I don't know. What do you consider
it's
where you live?
It's the buckle of the right wing Bible Belt.
Oh boy, buckle! Holy, holy!
Long for better representation.
Wow!
And those are key names you hear about all the time.
Wow! Oh my God! And then
Holly is another thing.
Oh
Tom Cotton, 2 hours from here in Arkansas.
Oh my God!
Wow. Wow. So we were just talking about Dixie. There you go.
There's a counterculture here and a democratic side, but I'm in the home of the national headquarters for the Assemblies of God and all that for profit religion.
Oh my goodness. Ooh. But you've been holding forth, and Jumani's a photographer as well. So we have some friends here that we were talking to about our early years of UpSurge, and it was great to have them and thank them. And I don't know if anybody has a question. My sweet dear Mia is on board. She was a dancer choreographer in those years. Now she's been a chef. She did acting. She did a lot of teaching, and she's been a chef instructor. And she is my dear one. There she is waving. Hi, Mia, my darling. She's been through all of this with us. And she's the one that introduced us, actually.
Oh, wow.
She's responsible. Yeah. Actually, Mia, you remember the group when it was Janos Lustig, I think? And
I remember when it's so funny because when I saw David, I have to say it's such a trip to have seen these young guys, really young guys, 16-year-olds, and then to see them now as I was just writing something in here. It's amazing to see them as accomplished musicians and dads and just beautiful people that they've become. It's incredible. Yeah, it's a long time. It's really lovely. I thank you guys so much for this. It was really such a great way to catch up with some of these really, 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 really young pups.
Right?
Because I've been wondering, and it's funny, Ziggy and I just had a conversation recently, and I was asking about, what happened to this kid? Do you remember this kid? I remember this kid. Yeah. That's very cool. Thank you for this.
Yeah, and I have to extend some thank yous to David for agreeing to come on. I'm grateful you agreed to come
on. Man, it was really so special. I can't tell you how special it was to see that stuff and think about those times. That was a very, very special, formative time for me. Very, very crazy to see some of those pictures, and I didn't know you had video of me acting stupid. And
oh man, that was so much fun, man. I'm
yeah,
gonna tell you.
Yeah.
You know, you guys were very loose. You know, like I tend to be very, really tight. Kind of whatever. I'm intense. I'm a very intense.
So you squeeze out those diamonds, man.
But
pressure.
You guys' group was really great for me because it caused me to relax back in the dressing room and everything when we came out. And then another person, once we got on stage, I had so much damn fun with Wellman, because she was just, we would be talking so much bleep, and it was just so much fun once we got on stage. But I have to say the journey to get to the stage could be sometimes difficult, but once we were on stage, man, we had so much fun, So again, I go back to that fun thing, it's just so important. I used to have a mental saying, private saying, if it ain't fun, it shouldn't be done. That was my private thing,
All right. So just give the opportunity. Anyone else want to check in and say anything before we go, or ask any of the cats any questions? We'll be editing this, and our other episodes are up on YouTube. You can go to Zigi Low, ZIGILOW, and we have our other episodes up there. And I'm also working on a series of visual jazz poems, which I work with a bassist that we've worked with in UpSurge NYC in New York, Ken Filiano, and I are doing some collaborations with some writing of mine and some visuals and posting them as little short videos. So we have our dear neighbor,
another
Deborah.
Photographer.
Oh God, this is photo heavy. Okay, Jamani, James, and Deborah, amazing. So Deborah photographed, James would photograph a lot at Yoshi's, actually. Deborah photographed us at Anna's Jazz Island, and from our 10th anniversary and 15th, I think. Yeah, at 15th.
Yeah.
And there's some classic photos. In fact, the photo of Angela that you did, James Gales did that portrait of you based on the photograph that Deborah was the one who shot that photograph. So there's
and
that
it's hanging and the original is hanging in some guy's office. I don't know, COVID and stuff now, but someone, he bought the piece from James, and it's hanging in his office. It's huge.
Wow.
It's a very big piece. I don't know who the guy is though.
Well, what I have to say is that we had the best damn photographers on the planet. Deborah St. John's, James Radke, Kamal Amin-Ra.
Oh, God, Kamal.
Phyllis.
Phyllis, Christopher. Gosh almighty.
Yeah, we were very blessed.
Yeah.
Very, very blessed.
Beautiful things.
So Jamani, you have to catch us sometime in New York. You actually gave us the name of a videographer who worked with us in on a New York gig.
Right.
Jamani's a filmmaker, producer, and photographer. So this is photo heavy on the scene here. But
we're gonna get you guys back to, because man,
we have to do something.
Yeah, I have a boatload of photographs. I have Radke photographs. I have Deborah St. John's DVDs or CDs or whatever photos.
Yeah.
So we and then I have Amin-Ra's photos, because he photographed us in 2003. We opened a rally in opposition to the U.S. attack on Iraq, and it was from Mosswood Park. We performed on a flatbed truck, and then 2 years before that, we opened the Barbara Lee rally. Amin-Ra photographed that. That was in 2001. It was at Oscar Grant Plaza in Oakland. It was then named Frank Ogawa Plaza. So we have some history there. And actually, Daryl was on the Mosswood, the anti-war rally at Mosswood Park. Daryl, Tammy Hall on piano, Richard Howell saxophone, and Ravi Apkarian bass. I remember them all. You know.
All right. Well, we don't want to give too much away of our evolution because we have that coming up. So
I just had something very beautiful to say, Mr. Raymond.
But say it. I love it.
Okay. You're a prophet. You make me think of, no, listen, what I'm saying, what
Okay,
I mean is, I'm thinking about like Saidiya Hartman and the things that she says about the archive. And, you know, how important the archive is. You know, it is the archive of the future. And it's so important. And I'm just amazed by how you have documented every breath of UpSurge. I mean, and it's because you could see into the future, and you understood the importance of that, creating the archives of the future. You were doing in the moment, whether it was a conscious or not, you were connected. And so I just think that that's very beautiful. And I just so appreciate that about you. I've been thinking about that through this whole series, right? It's like, this brother's a prophet. He can see into the future. He knows the importance of creating the archives of the future for the future. And speaking of the youth, for the youth, you know, Charlie Parker was 35 years old when he died. You know, he was born in 1920. By the time he was like, you know, delving into bebop, okay, the musicians union, they were on strike and in like for 2 years, from 1942 to 1944. And during that time is the time that, you know, they were incubating and playing uptown in Harlem, Diz and Mary Lou and Thelonious and all of them. And you know, and one night Bird was practicing on Cherokee, and he came to he had an epiphany. And it's sort of like in that space, you know, he came to understand that he was playing in the upper registers and understanding the whole every 12 tones can lead to something. And he was 22 years old or something like that, 20. So I guess the point that I'm making is, it's important. I mean, people make a big, you know, like say, oh yeah, the youth, you know, you got to bring youth in, but this music was created by young people. I mean, Diz and Bird and imagine by the time they were 20, what they had been doing when they were 16 after Joe Jones threw that cymbal, that Bird at that session in the Reno room in Kansas City, where I'm from. But I'm just saying, it's so important to think about the fact that, you know, we need places like young musicians so that by the time kids get 18 or 19, they're playing and they're ready for the next level, right? That's why, you know, I just wanted to say that. And so training grounds like the Jazz Messengers, training grounds like Betty Carter, and I placed UpSurge in that same lineage, right? Man. It was no, for real, it's a training ground. You got Daryl and them on here to say that, you know, it was a training ground. And so that's all I wanted to say is just like the work that you've done is monumental. And that's my last word.
Great to have you.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, much love.